Hello, Cleveland, and welcome back once again to another edition of the Dogland Podcast. I wanted to get in here and do a quick little Super Bowl preview for you guys. So this is dropping Saturday evening, or if you listen to it on a Sunday morning or early Sunday afternoon before the game, thank you for listening. I am your host, Jackson McCurry, and joining me as always is my co-host, Anthony Jokey. Anthony, how are you, brother?
I'm doing good. Nice day off from work, so we'll be home in time tomorrow for Super Bowl. So it should be a good weekend.
Yeah, same here. Just got to work in the morning, and then I'll be clear for the afternoon to watch the game. Looking forward to it. This is, Anthony. Like I think, kind of people were kind of hoping for Chiefs Rams, but I feel like the closer we get, the more people are excited about Rams Bengals, and I think this is shaping up to be potentially a classic Super Bowl matchup. I don't know if you agree or disagree.
Well, I think a lot of us were hoping for a different team from Ohio to be playing, um, as well as OBJ, but it just kind of took a weird turn, didn't it? Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting game. I really don't have a feel for this one yet because on paper the Rams are so much better. But all Joe Burrow has done, whether it's college or NFL so far, is win. So I honestly don't know. It's really going to be very intriguing to see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so interesting because the line opened, I think, at 4 and it hasn't moved. But I've gotten the sense the closer we've gotten to the game over the last 2 weeks that more people are betting on the Bengals. And it's surprising that the line hasn't budged at all. I know, a lot of money gets bet on for this game, whether it's prop bets or just, betting on the spread or the money line or the over under, whatever people want to gamble on. But uh, I get the sense that a lot of people are rooting for the Bengals. They're the underdog team, which is surprising just because of the run they've been on, beating the Titans, beating the Chiefs, beating the Raiders, even in the wild card round to get to this point. They've become what I think is America's darling over the last couple of weeks. The story, the ride they've been on, uh, it would make me think that the Bengals would have closed the gap on this spread, but it hasn't budged, and that's surprising to me.
Yeah, they definitely seem like they're America's team, which again we thought is going to be a different one from Ohio, but yeah, this team has captured the hearts of many. You've seen a lot of positive reaction for the Bengals across the sports media, um, over the last month or so. And it's just a real underdog story. And I know they don't like to take on that moniker and whatnot, but that's really what they are because, like I mentioned, on paper, the Rams are really good. The Rams have pushed all their chips into the table to win this game based on trades and draft picks and whatnot. Signing uh, veterans. Training for guys like Von Miller, getting OBJ in free agency, trading for Jalen Ramsey, trading for Matthew Stafford this last offseason. So they've invested everything they've had into this team. And like I said, on paper, they're the much better team. Um, it's just incredible to see what the Bengals have done over the last month with these close finishes and their kicker doing a tremendous job, beating the Chiefs not only to clinch the division but to make it to the next round. So it's just a really fascinating story for the Bengals, and I think there are a lot of people behind them, but um, as we get closer, I think people with the betting um, just look at this Rams team on paper and think there's really no chance the Bengals can win this one, which it's hard for me to believe based on, like I mentioned, Joe Burrow and what he's done. But um, it's just it's going to be a very intriguing matchup, and I know we're all excited for it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely an intriguing matchup. I mean, you talk about like you said the Rams pushed everything in. It's so fascinating because when you look at both of these rosters, the Rams have a lot of homegrown talent, which is, I think, a surprise to some because they've pushed all their eggs into the basket to get guys like Jalen Ramsey, Von Miller, Matthew Stafford, getting OBJ halfway through the season in a free agency pickup. But they have a lot of guys that they drafted that they've developed just like the Bengals. And the Bengals obviously also have a lot of homegrown talent. They did it the much easier or the harder way, developing all this homegrown talent that they have. They are obviously aren't a free agent destination. They don't push all their eggs into the basket with draft pick trades and all that. They did it. They obviously had a lot of homegrown talent a couple years ago, and then had a bad 2019 season, was able to get the number one pick, draft Burrow, and that's really turned their fortunes around because as good as Andy Dalton was, Joe Burrow took that team over and took them to even bigger heights. Andy Dalton was solid, got him to the playoffs numerous years, but could never get him over the hump. Joe Burrow has taken that and obviously was the first Bengals quarterback to win a playoff game in 30-something years, but now for the first time since '89, the Bengals are back in the Super Bowl. So it just shows how much more important the quarterback position really is and how much Burrow has elevated that team to the point where they're now one win away from their first ever Super Bowl.
Yeah, like I said, all he's done is win. LSU, he went to that team. They won the national championship, won the Heisman Trophy. His rookie year last year was obviously disappointing. Suffering that knee injury. He comes back this year, rehabbing still from the ACL injury, and he talked about the second half of the season is when he really started to feel better from that ACL injury. And you've seen his play. I know he's gotten sacked a lot, and that's obviously one of the big factors in this game against the Rams. But he doesn't really make mistakes. He gets the ball out quick. I don't think they're going to have to worry about too much of the pass rush because I just think that they're going to scheme around it. And he just seems to have it. You see him in a locker room after these games, like smoking cigars. He just has that presence about him that these top tier quarterbacks have, and I think he's pretty close to being a top 5 guy already. Which is scary. It's unfortunate that one of those guys, while he hasn't been that last few years, just retired into the division with Roethlisberger, and now you got to contend with Joe Burrow, who's just his meteoric rise over the course of this season. You're going to have to deal with that for the next 10 to 15 years. So he's a special player. He's a special talent. And as long as he's the quarterback of the Bengals, they're probably going to be a playoff team or close to it every year.
Yeah, and you just talk about like the last couple of years, but this goes back 4 years ago. Anthony, at this time 4 years ago, Joe Burrow was competing for the starting job at Ohio State with Dwayne Haskins. And when he didn't win the competition, he transfers to LSU, had a decent first year. And then 2019, he took off like a rocket and set numerous records, won the Heisman, obviously, like you said. LSU wins the national championship, throwing 60 touchdown passes, running in for 5 more, while only throwing 6 interceptions. Like, we didn't know how good this guy was going to be, and then he takes off like that and goes from he was probably going to be a day 3 pick going into the 2019 season to the number 1 pick. What a meteoric rise. And then, like last year before the injury, you've seen how good Burrow could be. He, put up a solid game against the Browns, solid half or 2 solid games against the Browns his rookie year. He got the knee injury soon after, but like they obviously weren't winning. You've seen the glimpses of it. And then this year he comes back from that devastating knee injury. We didn't know what he was going to be like, but it just seems like nothing shakes this kid. The knee injury didn't shake him. The fact that he's got sacked 51 times in the regular season, more than any other quarterback in the league, that didn't obviously phase him. The 9 sacks in the playoff game he suffered from Tennessee, but was still so pinpoint with his accuracy. He has that it factor. He has those intangibles that, when they talk about the great ones, like the Bradys, the Montanas, the Mannings, like Burrow has that, and it's a shame because he's in our division, but also at the same time, he's an Ohio kid. Uh, Knowing his story from growing up in Athens to see where he's become, I mean, it's a great story, and it's a shame he's on the Bengals because I am a fan of Joe Burrow. But it's going to be interesting to see. This is going to be the biggest stage he's ever been on in his life, and I expect him to have a pretty solid performance. But you got that Rams defense he's got to go up against, and they're nasty and they're ferocious up front, and I expect him to get after Burrow early on Sunday night.
This is kind of a weird parallel, but you know who Joe Burrow reminds me of? He's like the opposite guy of the quarterback in draft day. You know, how they watched. I really don't think this is a spoiler talking about this because that movie's been out forever. But
Are you talking about Bo Callahan?
Yeah, Bo Callahan. So, they really looked at the tape and what happened after he got sacked. His performance after he got sacked in those plays, which ultimately led them to not draft him. Burrow's kind of done the opposite, right? He got sacked 9 times against Tennessee. He wins the game. It's just a different type of animal. I know that's like a weird comparison, but for some reason that popped into my mind. But that Rams front is extremely tough. I don't think Cincinnati could block them, and I don't think they're going to try to. I honestly think they're going to run tons of screens, tons of quick passes. They're going to do everything they can to neutralize that pass rush that they have. I think they're going to try to run the ball. I think Mixon is going to play a very important part in this game. The Bengals and what their head coach has done, Zach Taylor, this year. They've had to overcome this offensive line all year long, and there's a lot of debate about whether they should draft an O-lineman or take Jamar Chase, which they did, and that's obviously paid off huge for them. They're still going to have to address the offensive line, but this team is going to be able to, I think, do a pretty good job schematically. They seem to make adjustments really well. You saw what they did second half against the Chiefs, and I think some of that was Mahomes just not playing well, too. But they made some really good adjustments. So I think that the Bengals are going to do a good job of neutralizing this pass rush effectively, and they're going to be able to move the ball quite a bit now. With how this Rams team is on the other side, and we've talked about this with the Browns at times, they can't settle for field goals. They have to convert when they get down to the red zone inside the 10-yard line. They can't settle for field goals. The firepower on the other side with Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, who's had a tremendous season, offensive player of the year. Obviously having OBJ there too. So they have a lot of work to do tomorrow night, but I think the Bengals schematically are really going to be up to the task against, another storyline. Zach Taylor's going up against his mentor, and Sean McVay. So, it's going to be very fun to see how that plays out. We kind of touched about that last time we talked. Schematically, it's going to be a chess match, and it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned it. Like, they have to get the ball quickly against this defensive front. Leonard Floyd, Von Miller, and of course Aaron Donald, probably the best defensive player in the league still. Even though more guys emerged this year, especially T.J. Watt, who won Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, they had to get out quickly, and yes, they do need. When they get down the red zone, they can't afford to settle for field goals. Yes, they have a great kicker in Evan McPherson, who's been automatic as a rookie, which is phenomenal, obviously, for Cincinnati. And it just, it's another thorn in the side of the Browns because they don't have that long-term kicker while other teams in the division too do. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned Zach Taylor. Obviously, first couple years in Cincinnati were rough. Definitely was on the hot seat coming into this year. He shook it off. He didn't win Coach of the Year, which I think he definitely could have. But obviously, Mike Vrabel did a fantastic job down in Tennessee. But yeah, it's the old teacher versus the student matchup with Taylor and McVay. He's going to be,
and the student is older than the teacher in this game, which is kind of
Wh-
fun.
which is all, yeah, it is quite hilarious. Reminds me of when Romeo Crennel had to go up against Bill Belichick, because I'm pretty sure Crennel is older than Belichick, but he was somewhat of the student against the teacher. It was fascinating. But yeah, I mean, you look at this, and we talk about Joe Burrow and how this is his biggest moment. We'll flip it over to the side of the Rams offense, Anthony. Matthew Stafford, who was with the Detroit Lions for a long time, only had, I think, 4 winning seasons in 12 years with Detroit. Obviously, we know Detroit, much like the Browns, has been a cursed, broken franchise for a long time. And, people thought when the Lions drafted Stafford back in 2009 that he was going to be the quarterback to turn things around. Plenty of glimpses, but never could get over the hump, never won a playoff game. And then finally, a year ago, Stafford had asked for a trade, and they accommodated him by trading him to the Los Angeles Rams. It was a big trade at the time, and a lot of people wondered, can Stafford finally show people what talent he has? Because there was no denying Matthew Stafford's talent ever. It was questioning Detroit's team building. And Stafford, goes to LA under Sean McVay with all the weapons around him, nearly 5,000 yards, 41 touchdown passes. He did lead the league in interceptions with 17, but Stafford finally showed people what he was made of in this playoffs. Having a monster game against Tampa, a pretty good performance against the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game, and also I forgot about the wild card round against Arizona. He was flawless in that matchup as well. But this is a big stage for Matt Stafford as well, Anthony. He's had a long, successful career, but now he wins on Sunday. He cements his legacy among the all-time greats against his peers from this generation of quarterbacks, the Bradys, the Mahomes, the Drew Brees, the Peyton Mannings. Like, Stafford can finally prove to people in his 13th season, and he's still got a long way to go because he's only 33 years old. Stafford can put his legacy up against the elite quarterbacks and say, hey, I got this Super Bowl now. You guys can start talking about me as a future Hall of Famer, as one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, he's a very interesting story. You talked about what he's being stuck in Detroit all those years, had some winning seasons, had a lot of losing seasons still. He's come to the Rams in this season, has won 3 playoff games already, which is, I think, more than the Lions franchise has won since 1958, which is a fascinating statistic I saw, and a very sad one for that franchise too. But if he does win this game, you're right. He's certainly going to be up there. He's an incredible talent, has incredible arm talent. He's just a good quarterback, and the Rams made the right call in trading Jared Goff and draft picks to go get Matt Stafford, and it's paid off tremendously. And I think he's certainly in a position to where he could finish his career with the Rams if he wanted to, especially if he wins tomorrow night. So I honestly think that it's these two quarterbacks have had such different paths to this point tomorrow night. Burrow in his second season, making it to the Super Bowl. Stafford on his second team, 13 seasons in, has finally made it. So, it's a very interesting storyline, and I think it's the main storyline of this game, which it kind of falls on the quarterbacks anyway, but I just think the intrigue with these two guys, very different career paths, and if Stafford does win, he's certainly going to cement his legacy as a really good quarterback, and should get the respect as being one of the top 5 guys in the league if he does win tomorrow night.
Yeah, he definitely, he has the Hall of Fame worthy stats, but I think this would all but cement it if he does win on Sunday night in the Super Bowl. It would cap it off. I mean, he's already at 50,000 yards, over 300 touchdowns, and he's only 33. Like, he's still got, if he could, I mean, he's had his injuries, but I mean, if he stays healthy, eats the right way, trains the right way, if he puts in the work like the Bradys, the Wilsons, these guys that are extending their careers, Stafford could be one of the all-time greats statistically when it's all said and done, but that Super Bowl will all but clinch it. Another interesting storyline that just got thrown into the mix here late in the Super Bowl process, Anthony, is Sean McVay's future, the Rams head coach. Interesting, talking to the media, and he was, we talked about it a couple weeks ago last week when we were talking about the coaching carousel, about how another assistant from his tree is now a head coach. Kevin O'Connell is going to be the next Vikings head coach. But now McVay's talking, and we said that McVay is going to coach for a long time and continue to just pump out new assistant coaches as head coaches. But he's talking that he said he don't think he'll make it, about making it to 60. He's only 36 years old. I think he's been the coach for like 5 or 6 years now. But he's trying to balance out his life now. He's getting married this summer. He wants to have a family. He's trying to find that balance between coaching and his personal life. And you got to wonder, there's rumors out there that he might be looking towards going to television and taking a break from coaching. Obviously, he could do this, and he's still young enough that if he takes a 5-year break, a 10-year break, he could come back and still put together a Hall of Fame worthy career. But Anthony, this is just another wrench into a storyline of the Super Bowl, that if McVay wins, does he walk away? And what does that do for the Rams going forward? If he decides, hey, I won a Super Bowl, I'm 36, I want to start a family, I'm going to take a break from coaching. Like, this is another fascinating storyline into this game.
It really is, because you look at how the Rams are kind of constructed right now. They have all these guys who are set to be free agents. Von Miller and OBJ, I think, are both set to be free agents. I think Stafford too. I'm not sure if he's in the last year. Maybe he has 1 year left, but he's close to free agency. So if McVay does retire, obviously, I would be very curious to see who they would hire as head coach. And then, not having these draft picks, having all these guys on deals set to expiring soon, it's obviously a super intriguing place to be if you're a head coach. So, having that spot open this late into where I think everything else has been filled, right?
Yes.
So everything has been filled at the moment. It'd be very curious to see what would happen in that case. If he does go to TV, obviously there's a lot of options for him. We were talking about briefly before this, like Amazon and Fox potentially, NBC, CBS. You mentioned something about maybe some of these bet organizations starting up broadcasts. So with his memory and his football IQ, I think he would be a tremendous analyst. It'd be interesting to see like who he would get paired up with. His memory for the game is incredible. I remember the one video where they asked him about a game like 3 years ago, and he was able to remember the exact play call. So he's quite a football mind. So I think he'd be really good at the job. And if he did, take a break for 5 to 10 years, he would obviously be extremely highly sought after guy. In that timeline. So I think that he'll be able to do whatever he wants to do. If he does decide to step away, that'd be great. And I honestly think if he does get the Super Bowl ring tomorrow night, he's really going to consider it.
Yeah, you were talking about who could replace him. Since it is so late, the one name that makes sense on his coaching staff is Raheem Morris. He's been a head coach, veteran defensive coordinator. I feel like he definitely has the respect and command of the people in that locker room. You mentioned all the free agents, like OBJ already said to the media that he would take less to stay. I'm sure Von Miller would take less to stay. Matthew Stafford is coming up on a contract year, but I would have to think that they're going to re-up him. They have some cap space after this coming season, going into 2023 and beyond. So they have money to work to extend him. So I don't think that would be an issue keeping the core group together. Obviously, they'll lose some guys in free agency, some of the younger talents, but this has been a team that has reloaded and, like I said, has homegrown talent. They'll find a way to make it work. Who knows if they win one, McVay decides, hey, I'm going to take a break. He might do this in another year or two. Maybe once his future wife and him decide to start having a family. It's just another interesting storyline. Sean McVay or Sean Payton just decided to take a break from coaching. He could be taking an analyst role. It'd be really interesting to see if Sean McVay were to do the same thing as well.
And you're going to hate me for this, but if Sean McVay does step away, the rumors to the Browns are not going to stop for many years to come. If I remember right, he's from a family of Browns fans. So it's that will never go away until he decides to come back and wherever he gets hired. So just going to throw that out there.
You're right, but the Rams will probably hold on to that contract and say, hey, whenever you're ready to come back, the job will be yours to take back over. So it would take at least 2 ones for that would be the starting asking price, I think, for a coach like Sean McVay. Would teams give up for him? Without question. Like you said, his football
absolutely.
IQ. Oh, his football IQ, his memory, his knowledge of the game, his offense has been electric since he became a head coach. And yeah, like I said, his mind for the game would be phenomenal for any team to have. But I feel like the Rams would probably just have stopgaps until McVay is ready to come back. And if you're going to come back, why go anywhere else but LA? The weather's beautiful, the money, the connections, the facility that they get to play in now. SoFi Stadium is a beautiful facility. I'd be hard pressed to go anywhere else, honestly.
Yeah, it would be a tough, thing to leave, but we'll just have to see if he even steps away. We'll have to wait on that one.
Right, just another interesting storyline to talk about. And Anthony, as we wrap things up, want to give your quick keys to the games for both sides and go ahead and give a prediction for Super Bowl 56.
Yeah, honestly, we talked about it, but the Rams pass rush is I think the biggest thing in this game that Cincinnati needs to neutralize. On the other side of the ball, Cincinnati really needs to find a way to I think put some pressure on Matt Stafford and try to do their best in containing Cooper Kupp. But if they do try to do that, the Rams do have plenty of other receivers, including Odell, that you have to pay attention to. So it's just about, I think, limiting those guys to yards and limiting the touchdowns. If you can force the Rams to kick field goals all game, they're going to have a very good shot at winning. So when it matters most, Cincinnati's going to just have to buckle down. And I think those two factors, while they're easy, they're going to make all the biggest difference in determining who's going to win this one.
Yeah, for sure. For me, a lot of talk will be about the Rams pass rush, but I'm going to talk about the Rams secondary because they're going up against 3 great receivers in Higgins, Boyd, and of course Jamar Chase. But you also got to take into account C.J. Uzomah, who's coming back, had the knee injury against the Chiefs. He should be ready to go. And even Joe Mixon. Like, the Bengals have so many ways to attack you on offense. But in the receiving game, the secondary has to step up. Jalen Ramsey has struggled. Darius Williams, he's 1 game away from becoming a free agent. He balls out. He's going to have a big payday coming his way in free agency from another team. But just that Rams secondary has to be on their A game against these guys, especially Jalen Ramsey. He gets paid big dollars to be one of the best corners in football, if not the best corner in football. If you can limit Jamar Chase or even Higgins or Boyd, whoever he's going to be going up against, if he brings his A game, the Rams are going to have a good chance to win because, the pass rush is going to try to get Burrow to make bad throws, pressure him, force him to make mistakes. The Rams secondary has to capitalize on that. And for Cincinnati, like you said, their defense has to have a big game too, because even though the Rams lost Tyler Higbee, they still have Cooper Kupp, they have Odell Beckham, they have Van Jefferson, and of course they have the running backs, Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson. So, like, the defenses, I think, are going to be the ones to watch for sure. We know how electric the offensive sides of the ball can be for each team, but the defenses have to step up and have a big game. The over-under is 48. I think it's going to be right around that. I would take the over by a slight edge, but I'm expecting this to be a classic Super Bowl. It's going to come down to the wire.
Yeah, with how these playoffs have been, you hope that it could continue to be a really great game. All these games being decided by field goals, these overtime games. It's been a really exciting postseason for the NFL, and they just hope that tomorrow can continue the same trend. And you had asked me earlier about my prediction. It's a tough one. I do think the Rams are just that much better, and they seem like, with all the stuff they've put into this team, all these extra draft picks that they've traded, these extra guys they picked up for free agency, they're just that much better, and it would be a monumental upset, I think, if the Bengals do win this one. I'm going to go with the Rams, and I'll say 33 to 27. 33-27.
Yeah, I would think the Rams are going to win this game, but I've seen this team make mistakes. I've seen them let teams stay in the game, and if they let a team like this stay in the game, we've seen what the Bengals can do. Down 21-3 against the Chiefs. The Titans let them stick around. The Raiders kept it close, and the Bengals ended up pulling it out. If this game stays close, Anthony, the way I think it's going to, I hate to do this, but I think Cincinnati wins the game. I think they win it by a late field goal by McPherson. And, it pains me to say this, but I think the Bengals win the Super Bowl 27-24. I think it's going to be a classic. And lo and behold, Cincinnati wins a Super Bowl before Cleveland, which would really irritate me. And before we close this out, Anthony, I've seen a lot of Browns fans doing this, cheering for Cincinnati. Me personally, if the Browns can't win the Super Bowl, I sure as hell do not want to see any of the teams in the division win the Super Bowl. And a lot of people look at me like that. That's just how I am wired as a sports fan. If the Guardians can't win the World Series, I don't want to see anybody in the AL Central win. If the Cavs can't win the NBA Finals, I don't want to see anybody in their division win the championship. Although it was awesome seeing Giannis finally get one last year with Milwaukee. Ohio State can't win the national championship. Don't want to see a Big Ten team do it. That's just how I am. I do not want to see our rivals win. I don't know if you feel the same, but it kind of bugs me seeing Browns fans cheer for Cincinnati.
I do feel the same. And granted, this happened before I was born, but because of Sam Weish, the Bengals can kiss my ass. I just, no chance in hell I'm rooting for the Bengals. I think I would rather suffer the OBJ talk if he has a good game tomorrow and they win for the next however many months than have the Bengals win a Super Bowl. And that's really saying something. So the Bengals and Sam Weish can kiss my ass.
I feel the same way, and that was before I was born as well. It's just, and seeing Paul Brown's other team win a Super Bowl before the Browns can win. Maybe that's the curse. Maybe it's the curse of Paul Brown for when Art Modell fired him, and he went ahead and started a new team down in Cincinnati. That they looked originally their uniforms looked exactly like the Browns, which I think that was just a shot from Paul Brown towards Art Modell. But like, if his other team wins before his original team, like, I don't know how I can deal with that. So it's definitely going to be interesting to watch. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to the halftime show. It's looking like it's going to be an all-timer based on the rumors. Already the lineup alone looks like it's going to be an all-timer, but I can't wait for the Super Bowl. As much as it pains me from both sides, seeing, OBJ, who I think is going to have a monster game tomorrow, whether it's win or loss, and then, of course, the Bengals in it. As much as it hurts, I'm looking forward to seeing hopefully a good football game.
Yeah, and I've been on a Twitter hiatus, and it's going to be that way for another week or so because either the way the result of what happens tomorrow is going to be ridiculous on there. So I'm just going to stay away.
While he stays away, you guys could still go follow him on Twitter at Anthony Joki. Joki is Joki. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Jack McCurry08, as well as the Dogland at the Dogland. We thank you guys for listening. If you've been listening to our off-season deep dive series with Jack Duffin, or if you haven't, please go check out the previous episodes. We will be back Monday, where we focus in on the linebacker room, and on Wednesday we'll be focusing on the cornerback room as well. So until next time, Browns fans, as we get on out of here, go Browns.